Hey, folks. Welcome to the October Reformation Gun Club online hangout. And we are live and public tonight. We're, instead of just broadcasting this to the Reformation Gun Club, we're broadcasting to all the fans of Armed Lutheran Radio, and we are live on YouTube as well. So hope you stick around for what I hope will be a fun hour. Mia Anstein is with us. We'll be here in just a moment. I'll bring her in just a moment. Be awesome to see her smiling face. Haven't seen her in a while. We normally do, for those of you who are not familiar with what we're doing here, the Reformation Gun Club are the members of it's our membership site that kind of keeps the show going and supports the show financially, because we are not funded through any kind of advertising or sponsorships. And our members are the people who keep us going. And one of the perks is that they get to join in on this monthly hangout. They get access to a lot of really cool exclusive content at our website. And some more new content is coming next week. I'll talk about the upcoming episode here in just a minute. We've got a lot of extra content for this week. If you would like to join in, if you would like to find out more, visit gunclub.armedlutheran.us and check out all the benefits. Before we bring everybody in, got a new book coming, and that is going to be in time for Christmas. It's going to be, I called it Gun Rights Apologetics. It's a little bit of, basically the idea is that we've got articles from Lutheran pastors all over the country who take the most commonly misused verses from Scripture, the ones that are misused in the gun rights debate, and they pick them apart, put them in better context, and explain why they're being used improperly. And I want to announce one of the perks for the people who pre-ordered the book. They got to have a say in deciding the title of the book, and I'm excited to announce that the title is Duty to Defend. Now, I really like this idea, because not only do we talk about the duty to defend as gun owners, the duty to defend our families and our neighbors, but as Christians, we have a duty to defend what God's word really means. And that's the great thing, I think, about this book and the awesome submissions that we've gotten from our own pistol packing padre and others like Gavin Mize and Evan Gegline, who is one of the hosts of Table Talk Radio, and lots of others. And so look for that coming up soon. This weekend, I don't have a cover to show you, but I'll have all of that squared away and submitted for publishing this weekend. If you would like to order a copy, or if you would like to check out the other books, go to armedlutheran.us/books. And I was just mentioning episode 239 is coming up this weekend. And Pastor Bennett and I discussed the election coming up, and a little bit about the debate that just happened this week. And we ran, I think, 25 or 35 minutes long. So there's going to be some extra content for members of the Gun Club coming up later this week. And we've got the pistol packing padre and his clone apparently are in the studio. How did that happen? I've got two of you. Okay, I'm going to get the one that's actually moving. There we go.
Yes. I realized I was on the wrong Wi-Fi, so
okay.
I had to switch. Yeah.
And for those who have been waiting many months to see the lovely Mia Anstein, she is with us as well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm happy to be home finally when you're having a hangout.
You've been very busy, and I keep seeing all these really cool pictures on your Facebook page of all the neat things that you're doing. What have you been up to? What haven't you been up to? Being at home.
Well, it's been COVID, so I've been at home a lot, but my home is pretty exciting. So
right. You've been out.
It's nice to have hunting season and a couple activities recently, so that's been pleasant.
Very good. Has COVID cut down on how has it cut down on opportunities as far as hunting and your hunting guide business?
In our state, it hasn't cut down too much, but like right out my front door, I look at New Mexico, and in New Mexico, it's kind of cut down on stuff there just because of their restrictions in their state for residents versus non-residents and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, as President Trump said, we're turning the corner, and hopefully things will improve on that front.
Yeah, I don't know what to believe anymore.
And Pastor Bennett is back from a trip to California. He survived the People's Republic, and they let him out.
I think they wanted me to leave.
They escort you.
They escorted you to the border and said, "Please don't come back. You're giving people bad ideas about their liberties." And you got to officiate a wedding.
I did. My brother Steven's wedding. He's 6 years younger than I am. There's 3 of us boys, and I have 5 sisters.
Holy
big
cow.
family. Yeah, we got a big family, and we're not even Catholic. So, so. Oh, but we the Bennetts have nothing on the Preußes. If you know any of the Preußes out there, I mean, Clement,
I may have to share this with them.
Yeah, Rolf Preuß. I think he has 13 kids. He had 12 sons, and the last one was a daughter or something like that. So,
wow.
Yeah. Anyway, I got to officiate my brother's wedding. The weather was terrible.
Ugh.
It was the day of the wedding. It was 100 degrees.
Oh my goodness!
So, yeah, we didn't have any 100-degree days here this year in Minnesota. So, yeah, 100 degrees, but everything went well. It was a good time.
100
Got
degrees.
to eat some In-N-Out, so I love me some In-N-Out.
Not bad. Not a bad thing. All right. So what I thought I know it's on everybody's minds because of the debate the other night, and Pastor, you and I talked about it for episode 239. I thought what we would do is kind of get everybody's feedback, kind of reaction to the debate. Mia, what did you think?
I enjoyed it so much that I didn't even watch it.
I was not going to either, except that we were going to discuss it for this week's show. So I felt
I did watch a recap this morning, and apparently it went really well.
Yeah, it was surprising. I think the reason that I was hesitant to watch it in the first place was because of the first one, which was just horrific, and made you want to drink 5 minutes in because they were shouting at each other. And by the end of it, it was all 3 of them with the moderator included. I didn't want to have a repeat of that, but we were going to talk about the election, and Pastor Bennett said, "Hey, could we delay recording until later? Can we talk about it later so we can watch the debate?" It's like, oh, okay. Do we have...
By the way, you're welcome, because it was worth watching.
It was. It was.
However, if you played the drinking game of taking a drink every time Biden said "come on," you probably only remember the first 15 minutes.
It was. That's true. I should have come up with a drinking game for that. But we'd have been blotto by the time we got around to recording the episode, and it wouldn't have been coherent.
Right.
Or
would
less
have been very
coherent than
interesting.
usual.
Yeah.
I thought Trump did very well. I thought the moderator was actually very good. She talked over Trump more than she did Biden, but I thought she was very fair compared to the way Chris Wallace handled the first debate. And what was the lady's name who did the town hall with Trump that just attacked him like a rabid dog for the whole time?
Oh yeah, I can't remember her name, but yeah.
Yeah, that was hard to watch.
This was the first time where Trump didn't spend the entire debate debating the moderator as well.
Very true. Yeah, she asked questions and then kind of got out of the way, and she actually asked some tough questions of Biden, which surprised me.
Yes, very surprising.
What is your, from what you have seen in your states and from just what you're watching on TV, if you are, what is your sense of how things are going to turn out? Mia, you first. I've heard.
I was going to say, who are you asking?
I was going to wait and let somebody jump in.
So besides just hanging out here at the ranch, I have been up in the high country where up there nobody cares because there's nobody there. Right. But I recently traveled down to Texas, and I drove. It took 9 days to travel down to Texas and back to Colorado, and everywhere in between Durango and San Antonio, there are Trump signs everywhere. And it isn't until you get to the more metro areas that you see the Biden signs. And my personal feeling is from people I visited with that if Biden were to win, it's because there is something rigged in it. It seems like a lot of the ethnic groups that I visited with recently, they have really woken up. They're changing their opinions. They're transitioning from Republican over or from Democrat to Republican. And they've just seen, some of the Black people have seen that they're used as pawns, and a lot of Latinos, they see that they're also being used as pawns, and they don't want to do that anymore. So they're looking to vote for Trump.
Yeah, that's an interesting yardstick or measuring stick, I think, is the signs and bumper stickers. And I think I joked a week or two ago that based on the yard signs that I've seen, Biden is losing to both Trump and firewood for sale. So that and you're right. As soon it's not until you get to, like, I drove to North Carolina, took my mom home, and I did not see a Biden sign until I got to Asheville, North Carolina. And that's 1,000 miles of driving, and I never saw a Biden bumper sticker or a Biden road sign or yard sign anywhere. And then you get to Asheville, which is sort of like California West or California East, and then you saw some Biden signs. And then once you got down the mountain closer to where I grew up, and the Biden signs disappear and the Trump signs show up again. What do things look like in Minnesota?
I live in a rural area. In all the rural areas and the small towns, you see Trump signs everywhere. And what's interesting is that even in some of the larger cities, the biggest close city is the city of Mankato. It's a college town. And it was not until, I would say, August, maybe early September, that you started seeing Biden-Harris yard signs popping up. Or let's be realistic, Harris-Biden, because, my money's on Biden being in the nursing home within the first 2 to 3 months after, if he manages to get enough fraudulent absentee ballots to win. So,
yeah.
The one thing that's interesting and one thing to really look for is, you look at all the polling firms that had everything dead wrong in 2016, except for one, and that was Trafalgar. Trafalgar also has Trump right now in the polls, winning every swing state. And what they're factoring in is the people who, when pollsters call them on the phone, they either lie and say they are voting for Biden, or they say they're undecided, even though they've already made up their mind and are voting for Trump. And that's what they did back in 2016. They managed to work out a formula where this gave them the calculation of the most accurate, the accurate polling data. And they're using that same formula this time around. And I really think that Trump is going to win by the same margins he did in 2016. There's a chance he loses the popular vote. I hope he doesn't, because that just adds fuel to the fire for the psychopaths that want to burn down cities. But I, of course, anything could happen between now and the election. You have less than 2 weeks away, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I wonder about that because we're seeing the polls starting in the swing states, particularly starting to tighten up within the margin of error. And I feel like if the polls are within the margin of error, then Trump is probably winning. Especially given, and you just hit on something. How much do you think people not really being willing to tell a stranger on the phone, yeah, I'm a Trump supporter, given how Trump supporters are generally treated?
Yeah, what's to say that pollster isn't going to take down your phone number and look up your address and out you on the internet as a Trump supporter?
Well,
It's
and we joked about how we're getting all these text messages and emails completely unsolicited. So, yeah, I mean, why would you submit yourself to potentially being abused, and if you can just kind of fudge the answer or lie?
right. Or maybe you're just doing it to screw up the pollster's numbers and make it look like Biden has more support than he actually does.
Right.
Because if you think about it, no one is really excited for about voting for Biden except for maybe Biden himself. But there's always a chance that he messes up and votes for Trump, unless his wife is filling out his ballot for him. But the people that are on the left, the only thing that they're excited about voting is voting against Trump. So if you're sitting there at home and you're in a state, a swing state, and you see that, according to the polls, Biden is up by 5%, and Trump has a 4% chance of winning this election, according to the polls, and you said, you know what, I'm going to sit home.
Yeah.
Biden, I really don't care for him, so I'm just going to sit home. I think the oversampling of Democrats and the numbers that are inaccurate, I think it's only helping Trump at this point.
Yeah. What are you seeing, Mia, in Colorado with early voting? Is it big turnout, you think?
Well, we've had mail-in voting for several years already. So I don't know, I haven't looked to see what numbers are, but we got our ballots I believe it was earlier this week. Since I've been gone a little bit, could have been the end of last week, but people are already voting. And that's the thing is, I was on a call with the gun owners for Trump, and Biden really hasn't started pushing until just last week. And so his campaign is way late for a state like Colorado, where everyone's already, my ballot's filled out, it's done. And so you're not going to sway my decision now on that or any other things that are on there this year.
Yeah. How about Minnesota?
I'm same situation, vote by mail. We got our ballots the end of September. And rather than trust the Postal Service, they had at the county seat, and it's probably like this way in every county, that there is a drop-off location where there's someone there who it's staffed. They don't check your address and compare it to your voter registration, so they have no idea how you voted. You just show up, you give them your ballots, and that way that your ballots have been submitted and will be counted. But again, I have no idea. I mean, of course, there's stuff that's happening up in the cities. If you saw the Project Veritas videos that came out about Ilhan Omar's district and the rampant voter fraud that's happening up there, that's the one problem with when you go to universal mail-in ballots and early voting, that you end up with a tremendous amount of fraud. So,
yeah. Does Minnesota have a way to track your ballot to make sure that it's been recorded?
I don't think so. Let me take that back. I believe they have a tracking system for tracking your mail-in ballot so that you can actually check to see whether or not your mail-in ballot was received. But aside from that, I don't think there's any other way.
That's what we have.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that Minnesota in 2016, there was only 3,500 votes separating Clinton and Trump in 2016. And who knows? Minnesota right now is considered a toss-up state. So I would be doing cartwheels, and I don't think I'm physically capable of doing cartwheels, but I'd be doing cartwheels if Trump manages to take Minnesota.
That would be quite the coup. Yeah.
Of course, Minneapolis is probably going to burn to the ground for the second time this year if that happens. But well, I'm 100 miles away, so I'll sit here at home in the safety of my home and pray for those who are suffering. But
Yeah.
I am not looking forward to the chaos that will ensue after the election if Trump does indeed win.
What do you think is going to happen? I mean, we kind of joked when we were recording the other night that there's 9 days to go to the election, but the election's probably not going to be decided in 9 days after the election, and there are states where the Supreme Court has ruled that they can continue to count ballots for 3 or 4 or 5 days after the polls close. What do you think? What do you guys think is going to happen? Are we going to get a quick decision? Is it going to be drawn out in the courts? Are we going to see massive unrest quickly? Is it going to be just? I mean, what do you guys anticipate happening? Mia first.
I was going to say, if Mia wants to take that first, I'm happy to do that.
I wish I had a crystal ball. I really wish that we could know, like, by midnight on the 3rd what the decision is. But I do think it's going to drag out. And I think the popular vote item is going to be used in several states. I know a lot of states are wanting to transition. A lot of the blue states are, which Colorado is one. So I think it's going to be a fight.
Yeah, and I'm cautiously optimistic that Trump does get this, but I would be very surprised if it doesn't end up in a court battle. I think back to 2000 with the guy who invented the internet and invented global warming, Al Gore. What happened with him in Florida, and how it was, if it hadn't been for the courts stepping in and saying enough is enough, we would have had Al Gore. So I really have a hard time seeing how this doesn't end up in the courts. If it doesn't end up in the courts, I sadly think there's going to be a lot of street violence. I mean, I grew up in the Los Angeles area, and Lakers fans will riot and burn police cars when the Lakers win. So what's going to happen when the person they voted for loses?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's very true. We have a rather unenviable history of people acting stupid even when you're celebrating good things. I suspect we're going to have a long drawn out process afterward, and if it's not quickly apparent that Biden won, then we're going to see some unrest, and we're probably definitely going to see it if Trump is actually declared the winner. So is there?
I think they're already making preparations for it. I mean, they're already saying that he's not going to concede if he doesn't win. And I think they're planning that if the numbers aren't exactly the way they say and they're going to be fighting, they're going to blame it on Trump not stepping down from his position.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that a little bit in our discussion prior when we were leading into our recording the other night. It feels like we've kind of, for months, we've been gaslit that, the media's told us, Trump has refused to say whether he will leave office if he loses. He hasn't committed to a peaceful transition of power. And so now, and at the same time, they're building up an army of lawyers preparing to contest this election. So what's going to happen probably is, as soon as there's any indication that Trump is not going to concede, they're going to say, the media and everyone else will say, "See, we told you so. He's not going to concede. He's a tyrant."
And yet, how many of those media outlets are playing the footage of Hillary Clinton saying, under no conditions should Biden concede the race if he were to lose? It's, I think, best case scenario, if Trump manages to pull off both the popular vote and the electoral college vote, I think that's going to be the recipe for the least amount of chaos and street violence. But you have this transition integrity project, which really doesn't have much integrity at all. And what have they said? That after the election, that it won't be a legal battle, but rather a street battle, or a street fight. Not a legal fight, but a street fight. I think those are the exact words. So we have these organizations that are already more or less promising post-election violence. And Antifa, they're always looking for an excuse to set something on fire. So
right.
They watch too much Beavis and Butthead.
Quick shout out! Our friend Dan has joined us and posted a comment. Dan, glad you're here. Better late than never. It's good to have you here. So, getting back to election, one of the things that we talked about, not to spoil the upcoming episode too much, but I kind of wanted to get Mia. I wanted to get your take on this because we talked about. And we saw John and I discussed an article that popped up on my Facebook feed this morning about this idea that as a Christian how can we support someone? How can we vote for someone who is as morally reprehensible as Trump, or who has done the kinds of things that Trump has done? What is your take on that? It's irregardless of the fact that it's usually used as a hammer against us by people who aren't actually Christians. That's one of the things we wanted to do with this week's episode was to sort of respond to that idea. I wanted to get your take on that. How do you respond to that?
Well, it's really interesting the way people look at Trump when really we've got both candidates that are not morally sound, in my opinion. I mean, somebody who is groping women and in front of his wife, and I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about Biden. So, which one is the worser? And I think we even talked about this in the 2016 election. It's kind of a duty as a Christian. I mean, if those are our two choices, and why waste a vote on someone else that's lower down the line? Because it's going to be a wasted vote. If you look at the other candidates on the ballot, they're not going to win. You kind of have the top two front runners, and which one is going to be the better one is the way I always look at it. I actually personally know somebody that Biden did his hugging and all that stuff too, and so he's not any better. I mean, really, you have to look at the policies, and in my opinion, I have to look at the First Amendment and our protections. And we, of course, Armed Lutheran Radio, we're also looking at the Second Amendment, and that's because it protects our First Amendment. And right now, if you look at candidate Trump versus candidate Biden, Trump's going to get our vote. He's obviously not the best for a gun, but he's way better than our alternative.
Yep. Yeah. When it comes to Biden, I'd like to quote Kamala Harris. I believe Joe Biden's accusers. So, which is interesting because with all the attacks against Donald Trump, yes, he has admitted to his sexual improprieties, but it was all consensual. We have yet to have someone come forward and say that, well, Donald Trump sexually assaulted me. If there was a person out there, I would think that by now, there haven't even been any false accusers who've been paid off by Democrats to do that. But yet you have victims coming forward accusing Joe Biden of some really terrible things. I'd like to say that, Trump talked about women letting him touch them in particular places. And the key word there is letting, they'll let you grab them by the, I won't use the term, but yet Joe Biden, according to his victim, forcibly touched a woman there against her will without her consent. So,
and we have plenty of video of him being a little handsy with women in public.
Women and little girls.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's for anyone that wants to throw around the whole moral argument that, well, you can't vote for Trump as a Christian because, he's kind of he has no moral character. Well, look who the alternative is. as Mia said, I think right now when we look at the moral character of the two, that Trump really is the lesser of two evils. Joe
Which is
Biden has
scary.
been denied this. Yeah, it's scary to say that.
Yeah.
But Joe Biden has been denied the sacrament by a Catholic priest, and rightly so, because any faithful Catholic priest should not be communing anyone who has publicly supported abortion, which Biden has time and time again. So, how can he be considered a quote unquote faithful Christian or a person of faith when he is strongly at odds with the teachings of the church? But then again, look at what Pope Frankie has done recently this last week, and who knows how many days is it going to be between now and when Pope Frankie says, "Oh, that abortion thing, it's okay now."
Yeah, that's true. And if you compare the two of them in terms of their peccadillos, Trump's are all the things that are said about Trump in terms of his dealings with women are in the past.
Yes.
We can look at Biden, and Biden has very public and recent incidents of, at the very least, inappropriate contact in this year's campaign. It's not like this is something that, oh, that's old Joe, that's, and he doesn't do that anymore. It's a matter of, at his age, has he learned that that's not appropriate, or is that just baked in and that's who he is?
I don't think it matters what age you are. It's kind of basic common sense that, coming up behind women and putting your hands on the shoulders and sniffing their hair isn't the most appropriate thing to do unless you're married to them. So, I mean, it's just kind of weird. When I was in college, there was a guy that would do that, and I don't think he was aware of his nickname among many people, but he was referred to as Chester Mo. So.
Oh, no.
But he did the same thing. He would walk up behind girls and he would sit there and sniff their hair. And it was the creepiest thing. It's.
Oh,
yeah.
And Dan mentions, performance is important. And so this is something that we did a little bit on the show and the upcoming episode. And we talked about comparing the two in terms of, let's look at Biden in 47 years compared to Trump and his 3 years and 9 months. And it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, Biden has sniffed far more heads of hair than Trump ever has. That's
different kind of performance.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that.
Yeah, Trump is he is, like you said in our recording session, he has no filter between the brain and the tweets.
Right.
If it comes into his head, he tweets it. And that's off-putting for some people. But the problem is, or the thing that people aren't willing to do, is set that sort of the personality stuff aside and say, comparing the policies, which is better for our country? And that's what we have to do as Christians. Because ultimately it's what is better for our neighbors.
Yeah, and I'm always going to side with the candidate who is opposed to killing babies in the womb, which I would also, I know that we might even have some libertarians among members of the Reformation Gun Club, but I would say that within the Libertarian Party, the topic of abortion is one that is not concrete. That depending on who you're talking to within the Libertarian Party, within the leadership of the party, that abortion is considered okay by many within the higher ups of the Libertarian Party. So, Joe Jorgensen will never get my vote, and that's the reason why. Yeah. Or any of the other candidates that have been for the Libertarian Party in the past. So, what your choice? My choice is very clear. Yes, I am a one issue voter with that. I would go so far as to say if there was a candidate who was opposed to the practice of abortion and also in favor of gun control versus someone like Joe Biden, who knows? I might still vote for that person that's opposed to abortion, or I might just sit that election out. But for me, that comes primary to anything else.
Yeah, that's kind of the line that as Christians, I think we can't really cross. If we the issue of life, and we again, just sort of teasing this weekend's episode, that the issue of life is not just abortion, although that's a huge part of it. But we have to look at the pro-life. We have to be pro-life in all of the policies that we consider. Second Amendment rights are a pro-life issue. The abortion issue, obviously, and then border security or crime, those sorts of things. They all boil down to a pro-life issue, because there are lives of our neighbors that are affected by bad policies in those areas.
Yes.
Let's see. Got some more. Dan is very very commenty tonight. Let's see. Trump is a basket case when he tweets. What has he done? Sudan made an announcement. Oh, I haven't heard this. Sudan made an announcement today. Another peace prize. So another peace deal. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. That is one of the things that we've been pleasantly surprised with Trump. I think for those of us who had our reservations about him going in, and many who considered themselves never Trumpers, people like Ben Shapiro, who are now openly saying, yeah, I'm going to go out and vote for him, recognize that the record is a lot better than we ever anticipated that it would be.
Absolutely. And that's Sudan. I believe that's been in the works for a while now. I didn't hear that it had been solidified today. For those who aren't aware, South Sudan is predominantly Christian. Northern Sudan is predominantly Muslim. They've had problems for decades with Muslims slaughtering Christians and trying to force them to convert. And if they have finally accomplished peace between those warring factions, my gosh, that would be a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. Dan thinks you're feisty tonight.
Yeah. And I'm not even drinking whiskey, so.
I'm going to say always, aren't you? It's awesome when I'm traveling, because I listen to you guys when I'm headed down the highway, and I always wonder what other people, when they see me just laughing and crying while I'm driving, what they're thinking.
You never know what's going to happen. It's always an adventure. What is the local political situation like in Colorado, Mia? I know gun rights and hunting issues and conservation issues are big in Colorado, and you don't have a great governor when it comes to some of that stuff. Any chance of any of that sort of thing changing?
Well, our governor is there for a little while longer. They've been trying to get to oust him for a while, and they're not able to get all the signatures for that. So he's still there. In the county where I live is a blue county. It's the city itself is very Democrat. There's a lot of homeless. It's a college town. They get all the college kids to vote and convince them of the right ways and so forth. But then you head out of town into the rural areas, and the rural areas are finally starting to speak up and fight, which is why I noted the Trump signs everywhere, because a lot of people don't want signs on their properties because they don't want to be vandalized. They don't want to be tagged as, somebody. So it's interesting to see the signs. It'll be interesting to see if our Senate goes to Hickenlooper. We have Hickenlooper, who was our old governor before Paulus came in, and he's running against Cory Gardner, who's the incumbent Republican senator, and he's been caught in violation of laws and so forth, but he's still supposedly, according to the polls, is the front runner. I don't know whether the polls are right or wrong, but that's really, honestly, like the presidency is a big deal, but the Senate to me is a bigger deal. And I don't know that a lot of people are paying attention to that. But there's actually campaign ads for our area here that Colorado is 100% Democrat run. And that's supposed to be a reason to vote for the Democrat, where I honestly, I've always kind of been in the middle. I used to be. I guess I'm not anymore because things are going so far left. But to me, we need both so we can have a balance. It should be good for everybody. And that's the way the Democrats are running. This is a Democrat state, and you should vote for me because I'm a Democrat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. As I said, there are some Republicans that are really fighting. They're campaigning hard. They've raised a lot of money, and they're on the streets talking to people. So I really hope for November 4th to wake up and see what's going to happen in the world.
Right.
Because there's so much going on so many levels.
What's the local situation like in Minnesota?
Well, I live in a deep red part of the state. If you were to look at an electoral map, just about all the state is almost entirely red, except for 3 metro areas, and that's it. Even, I mentioned the city of Mankato, which is considered a liberal city. That's within the county that I live in, but even our county was still red on the electoral map last election. I have a dolt of a governor. He was our state representative for Congress, and then before he became governor. And before he was congressman, he had embezzled a fair amount of money from a local veterans organization and was never prosecuted for it. So that tells you the character of this person.
Oh man.
Yes.
That's a resume enhancer in the Democrat Party, it seems like.
Yeah, if you're corrupt, it's like, hey, tell me where I can send my donations to your campaign. So, and he has tried to keep our state locked down. He put in some very draconian standards for when schools can and can't be open. That if you have a minute percentage of the population of a particular county that have so many cases, then, schools either have to be hybrid or online only. Fortunately, the school that I sent that our kids go to, we did have to shut down for 3 weeks because of a number of COVID cases, especially among the faculty. But we're not doing that again, Lord willing. We are in person, even though within the rest of the county, with the exception of I think 1 or 2 schools, all the other schools are online or hybrid. So he's really done a lot of economic damage. One of the worst things that he did is there's the Minnesota's largest candy store. Turns out it's owned and operated by a good buddy of his who's donated to the governor's campaign, and the owner's son is also the governor's personal attorney. And when restaurants and bars were still prohibited from opening, the governor declared the candy store to be an essential business so that they could reopen.
What? A candy store?
It's because they sell more than candy. They also sell produce, and because they sell produce, people have to buy their produce because there's no other places to buy it from in that area except for the candy store, obviously. Otherwise, it wouldn't be an essential business. Yeah,
right.
Well, they sell pumpkins. Well, I'll never go there again. I used to go there to get pumpkins to carve for the kids because you get an enormous, 20-pound pumpkin for $4, but they'll never get another dime from me. So no, they sold pies, and you can buy milk and butter there, I think. And because you can't buy those at your local gas station, right? So we have to open up the candy store. So that's kind of, I think, a good example of what the political climate is in the state of Minnesota. You have the metro areas, and then you have everyone else. And the governor sets the standards as if everybody in the state, the circumstances were the same as here in the metro area. And it's just, it's horrible. I mean, I still love Minnesota. I love living in the state, but I would be thrilled if southern Minnesota was annexed by South Dakota.
And Dan, who is prolifically commenting who was Dan Velt is from our good friend is from Washington State, and he was in your neck of the woods last year, was it? I think, and
just earlier this spring, I think it was. Dan grew up out here, so
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, he was out here to see his mother before she passed, and we got to sit down and have breakfast at a local restaurant. And that was before there were at that point there was just a handful of Biden signs up in the city of Mankato. So
they said he lost count of all the Trump signs in your neighborhood. So Trump is running behind or neck and neck with firewood or not Trump. Biden is running neck and neck with firewood in your neighborhood.
I think he's a close third. Well, and out here, the big thing is, you drive by any corn or bean field. That's the major crops out here that people put up their signs on the side of the field for the brand of seed corn that they use. And so, I mean, Biden is really losing to all the seed corn companies right now. But Trump has him beat by a long shot. So if we were just to go off of yard signs only, Trump takes Minnesota by a 60% margin, but I know that's not going to happen.
No, it's I'm not sure what the numbers are like here in Texas. I know the turnout has been tremendous. I live in an area where you can. I live 6 minutes from the polling place. It took me longer to get there in the car than it did to actually vote, but the turnout has been. I want to say something in our county, something like 39% of all voters have already voted. So, and that was last week sometime. So the turnout, it looks like, is going to be quite large. And hey, look who has joined us, Dan himself.
There he is.
Hey.
So how are you, Dan?
I'm good. How is everyone here?
We're doing well.
Excellent.
So tell us how things are in Washington State. What are you seeing locally, and what are your thoughts on how things are going to turn out?
Well, in Washington State, it looks like Joe Biden is the man that's going to win the election.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how that turns out. But I have seen some indications that Minnesota might actually go for Trump, and that thrills me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minnesota hasn't gone for Trump since I think it was Nixon's first term.
I think
maybe a second
early
term,
70s.
but yeah, it hasn't happened since then, since before I was born. So it's been more than 40 years since Minnesota has gone red.
That would be a nice change. Trump made some forays into the Rust Belt up in the Midwest during the 2016 election. So who knows?
And he's been to Minnesota quite a few times already. I think he's
been to
already
Mankato.
he was in Mankato. It was a private event at the Mankato airport. I believe he's had now 4 different events in Minnesota this year. So for Minnesota, there's never been a presidential candidate that came to Mankato, so that was kind of a big deal for Mankato. And it was great because the airport, it's about 7 miles northeast of town, and you had Antifa and BLM supporters wanting to do their protest, and they let them have a park that was on the complete opposite side of town. So it was about 15 miles away from the airport, and that's where they let them do their protests. So
seems fair.
Yeah, man, and the
Stand
thing,
proud.
yeah, that's right.
Dan,
maybe if we're a little bit louder, Trump might actually hear our protest.
Right. Dan, you're being in Washington State and seeing what's been going on in Washington this year with all the craziness in Seattle. And I guess this question too for you, John, with the craziness that happened in Minneapolis following the George Floyd incident, do you think the law and order issue is going to make a difference in either of your states?
It's going to make a huge issue, I believe.
I sure hope so, because it's definitely an issue. There's a number of Seattle police officers that have just said, "Hey, you know what? You're not going to let me do my job. I can't stay here," and they've left, and that's horrible because Seattle's a big environment, and I know a lot of retired and current Seattle police officers that are top-notch guys, and they're frustrated with what they're able to do and how they're able to react. And we need cops. We like cops. We like law and order. I'm not sure what this whole defund police thing is about, but it seems to be pretty prevalent here.
Well, and in Minnesota, they found out what defund the police means, and changed their minds on it very quickly. The city council, and was that Minneapolis? Was Minneapolis, right?
It was the Minneapolis.
We're going to defund
council.
the police, and then suddenly, wait a minute, why don't we have any police? Well,
here's the thing: the defund the police movement is mostly white liberals telling black people how they're supposed to think. And yet they did a poll in these black inner city neighborhoods and found that I believe it was 82% of these African Americans living in these neighborhoods were in favor of a greater police presence, not defunding the police. Because crimes are being committed in their community, and yet these white liberals are saying, let's defund the police. Well, who's gonna police these neighborhoods if the police are pulled off the streets? And we saw what happened in the Chaz when they decided to police themselves, that, well, people got killed.
Right. And the same people who are calling for defund the police are the very same people who are in favor of increased gun control or even banning guns outright. And so we're going to take away the police because we don't trust them. And so we're not going to allow them to protect you. And at the same time, we're going to take away your ability to protect yourself. I don't know how people still think they should vote for politicians who think like that.
And I think one of the great consequences is going to be, I think, for example, of the business owners whose businesses were destroyed in Minneapolis and various neighborhoods, that if any of them were sitting on the fence with which way they were going to vote, well, how do you think they're going to vote now? There was the firefighter who had spent his life savings to open up a sports bar. They hadn't been able to open up yet because of COVID. He had just finished it, and he hadn't taken out insurance on the building yet because they hadn't been open for business, and his bar got burned to the ground. It's
yeah. And then there was it's just stuff. It's insured, right? It's no big deal. And then when all those businesses got burned down, the insurance company said, you know what? We can't afford to rebuild your business. So they may have had insurance, but a lot of good it did them.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And did their policy include riots and civil unrest?
Right.
That's been an issue too.
Right. Hey, Mia, how's Leah doing? Is she still in what year in college is she now?
She's finishing her last year of school right now, nice. And she's transitioned to just strictly online school.
Okay.
So she's doing good. She's I guess just separating from a lot of the liberal students by doing online. That's her main thing. She's like, I'm so close to being done. And I don't know if I told you guys in any segments that she was attacked for calling someone color. She was doing a speech, which she's not a good speaker. I mean, she's very shy and introverted. So she's doing a speech in front of the class, and she said colored instead of black.
Okay.
And was attacked and threatened. The students threatened her life. The teacher just let him. She was verbally attacked, not physically attacked. But afterwards, she looked at the teacher, and the teacher just looked at her like, well, you're wrong. You shouldn't have used that word. And that was after that was when COVID came and they finished their semester online. But after that, she's just like, it was bad before, and if she goes back to school, she's like, it's got to be worse. So she's just finishing online and carrying on from there.
So virtual has been a blessing for her not to have to be around that toxic leftist environment.
Yeah. And just some other students that we've bumped into at meetings and different things that we've done, one of them, he's just starting school, and he said it's really hard to meet other kids or make friends because they're all wearing masks, so they don't want to communicate, and they have to wear the mask the whole time they're there. They can't take them off. So it's putting barriers between them when there already were barriers there to begin with.
When we here in our local school system, when the announcement was made that we were going to open, then parents had the option of either sending their child in person or doing virtual. My daughter could not wait to go back. Locked down for months and months and months and not seeing friends. She could not wait to get back around other kids. And we were sympathetic to that because kids at that age, they need that socialization. Well, she went back to school and they're not socializing. They're wearing masks constantly, like you said. They don't sit with their friends. They are separated from one another. There's no going to, the common places that you would normally socialize with your friends, recess and PE and at the lunchroom. It's not happening. And she's sitting around a lot of people distanced from them, but they're not even her friends because a lot of her friends are doing virtual or they're in other classes. And so she finally was like, I hate school. I don't want to go back. And it was a battle for weeks.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure it's even more depressing to be at school with other people and be forced to isolate from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a person dying of thirst and they see that cup of water and they just can't get to it. It's
and that's where
depressing.
That's why I agree with
analogy.
Yeah, it is. And it's why I agree with Trump. We need to open the schools back up, but at the same time, I also agree that the solution can't be worse than the problem. I mean, we're hurting the kids, we're hurting people in general with all these policies, whether it's the lockdowns or whether it's travel restrictions or whether it's schools. We're hurting people in other ways while trying to keep them safe from something that probably isn't going to hurt them all that much, even if they catch it.
That's not how it works with my friends.
Well, with the school where my kids go, 2 of the teachers tested positive for COVID. And these ladies, they're in worse health and older than I am. And they had almost no symptoms whatsoever. And I was sicker than a dog for 2 weeks. So teachers,
you're looking good now.
Thank you. I'm feeling good. And they did a study that teachers and students are the lowest percent for contracting the virus than the rest of the population. So you take the entire population and what the percent is that are infected, and teachers and students are lower than the average. So that's for my kids. I'm so glad that they're attending a Lutheran school because they don't have to wear the masks in the classroom. They still get to play with their friends and socialize. And I mean, they get to be kids again instead of being forced to isolate from everyone else. It's refreshing.
Absolutely.
We were blessed that our school system allowed everyone to make a choice at the beginning of the year. And then after the first 9 weeks, you could change. So we changed. And interestingly enough, her virtual teacher now has COVID.
and that's unfortunate, but I'm sure she will come out of it okay.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't mean to make light of her illness. It's just the irony of this whole thing. Everything we've been told about what works and what doesn't and how to keep people safe, and Joe Biden in the debate talking about how if everybody would just wear a mask, we'd save 100,000 people. That's BS. We have no idea what works.
Yeah.
Even now. All right, we're running up on the end of the hour. Dan, thank you so much. Dan is one of our Reformation Gun Club members, and we definitely appreciate your continued support for us. And it's great to see you. I'm glad we got you in here for the last 15, 20 minutes, and hope
Glad I made it.
I'm looking forward to seeing everybody again at the next one. Episode 239 is coming up on Sunday, so if you want to hear a more in-depth discussion of how Christians should view the upcoming election and the different personalities involved, be sure to check that out on Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Time, and there will be at least 25 minutes. I haven't finished all the editing. There's probably at least 25 minutes of additional content exclusively for Reformation Gun Club members. Thank you all for being here. Mia, it was great to finally get back together with you. And I hope
my internet worked today.
I know.
Nice. Excellent.
The podcasting gods are with us. So hopefully that will continue next month, and we'll see you guys again. And thank you all, everyone else, for joining us and being here. Be sure to tune in next month for another online hangout. And we'll see you next time.